Trucker here, welcome back after a long time. I do apologise, as I say, been very busy and just all over the place. I'm just not in the mood half the time as well to do any vlogging, so I don't want to do vlogging for the sake of it, but let's cut that short. I want to say a massive thank you to all the subscribers I've had lately as well. It is very much appreciated. Thank you yet again, as I always say. Where are we today? We're in my office lounge man cave at home on my day off. And today we're going to be talking about, which pretty much most of the other truck vloggers have touched upon in multiple videos and all sorts, is the driver shortage. And just as a disclaimer, this is my view. Some of them will be very similar, if not identical, to the other vloggers. Some might differ. You know, it is what it is. We all have our views and we all have a right to express our views and what maybe we think things are going wrong, what are the issues, disconnects, etc, etc. So I don't go too far off topic today. I've written down what I call the 3 pillar stones of what are the basic issues, and there's other affecting issues as well which we'll touch upon, talk about and maybe elaborate in. Bear in mind this might be a long vlog. I will be probably putting some driving footage over this, so you're not just staring at my mug all day. So you can watch a bit of driving footage, maybe throw some pictures up, we'll see. So number one, we're going to start off with pay. I know this pay is going up in one end of the industry and it's like a seesaw. It's a bit messed up, that's all I'll say. But pay has been an issue for a long time in the industry as a whole. It's been a bit messed up for a long time. But at the moment you got jobs out there for 50 odd grand. It's good, but it's crazy, and that's like day work. But yet you have the disconnect between the pay between trampers, day, night drivers, you know, drivers who go home every day at the end of each shift, to drivers who are out on the road all the time. You know, still very bizarre. You know, you can be on less money but spend more time away from home, but you could be on more money but be at home every day and even working less hours potentially. But it is though what it is. It's not the fault of the drivers, by the way. It's just a bit mad. And you know, what I felt was a really fairly well paid job, and now compared to some of the weights out there, it's like, you know, mad. But I enjoy what I do. I enjoy being a tramper at the end of the day, and I think I'll get bored with day work pretty quick. Yeah, it's basically been pay for a long time. Pay has always been an issue, and you know, not with every company. Some companies are even better than others. It tends to be with the really big hauliers out there been undercutting, who tend to drive the market on pay as well. So hopefully with the weights going up in one end, maybe it might drag up. So we'll have to see. There's a lot to be seen if that will happen or not. I'm just a bit concerned because it's a bit like a seesaw. I know a lot of drivers who've moved from one end of the industry to the other end of the industry, which is then just shifting the problem elsewhere within the industry, which still equals issues in supply, etc, etc. Other issues is facilities. So this is the second pillar is facility. So like with services, like your mainstream service, like your motors, road chefs, welcome brakes, and so on and so forth. Not all, you do have some outliners, but most of all our services are really rubbish here in the UK, and we get ripped off in all aspects. And access to toilets can be questionable, and even when you got access to toilets, the state they're in, you know, you wouldn't give it to prisoners. At the end of the day, you know, you probably get better facilities in a jail. You know, let alone if you go and want to have a shower, they can be in white states. That's if you're lucky to get in for a shower, if you're happy to go in. You know, personally, I just don't bother unless it's emergency or I really have to, or I know there is a good shower. It's just because the state of UK showers is bad compared to the continent. I'm not saying the continent's all perfect, but what I hear off European drivers and that, and what I've seen when I've been over into France and all that, not commercially, but when I've been on holiday, I've been in services, it's been a lot, like, it's a different planet better. And you don't get ripped off for the parking charges typically on the continent either, unlike our £30 here, which is just mad. And just how they maintain the security aspects, etc., etc., is just, you know, you go to the lay-bys, you look at the state of the lay-bys, how they're kept, it's awful. And for the amount of money we pay in for road taxes and such like, it's not just as truckers, all road users. And yes, I will admit, there's some bad eggs out there. People who vandalise these facilities, people who litter, they are equally to be blamed as well. It's just mad. And any driver who does vandalise or litters, if you moan about the state of facilities, you have no legs to stand on. You shouldn't be doing it in the first place. Look after it. You know, even if you think it's rubbish, look after it. There's no excuse that it's been vandalised already for you to then go and vandalise it further, for example. The third pillar is treatment, which I'm not too sure if it's the right name for the pillar, but in terms of how drivers can be treated by customers, even by some haulage companies can treat their drivers. Not all, there's good companies out there like mine, you know, who do look after their drivers, who do listen and try and support the drivers best they can. But equally, you can walk up to companies and they can treat you like you're a moron, or do, you know, you could even say try to help them out and you couldn't save them. You know, if you're a driver, you probably know what I'm talking about. It's such a vague area. And then you got to deal with general public, with road rage situations, and as a driver I say do not get involved, but you do get it shouted at you, all sorts running out on the road. You do have people who for some reason hate truckers, for whatever reason it may be. You know, it isn't right, but it is a factor. And with these three pillars, a lot of this could be resolved, not fully, but certainly made better. You know, by either the government cracking down onto services, etc., etc., providing more access to showers. Another thing, speaking with some of the drivers, is, and actually I'm supporting more and more, some of the main services, they should have dedicated driver toilet shower facilities, and probably in the ideal world, access to their own private area within the facility as well, way away from the general public. Because you're dealing with them all day, it's just nice just to be away from them for a little bit. The other thing I would add in, which I've highlighted before, you know my belief on services, my semi-campaign, not against them, but to try and make them better, is access to more healthier, warm, hot food. You know, homely meals, instead of just fast food all the time. Yes, some services do have a cafe, but generally when you park up, they're shut. And the only choice is your BK, your McDonald's, your KFC and whatever else. That's fast foody. Now we're going to get down to the kind of what I call the subcategories. Doesn't mean that any less affect why there's a driver shortage, but you know, that equally I'm going to cross some myths as well. One of what I call a slight myth, I'm not saying it's not a factor, by the way, I'm not saying it's had no effect, no, but I think it's not as big an issue as it's made out to be by the media and the government and some of the representing bodies of the transport industry, is Brexit. And the reason why I say that, why is the continent having driver shortages, why is the US having driver shortage, why is Canada, why is Australia and numerous other Western state countries having the exact same issue? And some of it's not a new thing either. Also, tied in with Brexit is kind of labour. You know, beforehand, this is one of the causes to the led from the driver shortage, because our industry came heavily reliant on cheap labour. Cheap labour from the East. And I'm not trying to demean the Polish, the Romanians and all that. You know, some of them are probably very good drivers in their own right. It's not their fault. At the end of the day, it's just the fault of the greed of the companies at the end of the day. But quite rightly, a lot of them have wised up and things have got better back home for them as well, in terms of they get better rates of pay, better welfare now back in their countries and in Poland and so forth. You know, that's other reasons as well why they're not coming back. Also because the 19 thing that's been going around has played a factor in this as well. Obviously has. You know, with economic shutdowns, with all that going on. It hasn't helped. You know, panic buying hasn't helped. You know, and it falls back to how drivers are being treated, how they've been treated through the pandemic. A lot of drivers through the pandemic just gave up because they weren't getting access to the toilets and stuff like that, and being messed about. You know, and you know how businesses and even the government and even the industry treat the drivers can be very alien and almost like we're not human. And I think it gets to people. So we touched Labour, we touched Brexit. As I said, those take it or leave it. I'm not saying Brexit has not had any effect. It may have had a small amount of effect in terms of bureaucracy. Government and probably the industry tied in together here with the media, all both bad. Yeah, the government's pulling levers, they're cutting corners, they're changing the training, they're changing even the working hours, you know, make it even more dangerous. Instead of talking to the drivers, asking the drivers what are the issues. And that's a big thing I've noticed looking at the media and the government and even the industry. No one is actually really approaching the drivers and saying, look, what's the problem, drivers? What do you want? How can we fix this? What are the issues? Even if you run a census through the drivers, I bet you'll get all the answers. And it's just, I'm not a conspiracy believer, by the way, but it does make you wonder. I think they know what the issues are. It's just that obviously trying to avoid facing up to the horse's mouth. And you know, the industry blame the government. The government blames the industry or the drivers or whatever else is going on, rainbow ponies, you know. But fundamentally, a lot of the fault lies with the industry. At the end of the day, the industry says you need to legislate to get us out and allow cheap labour to come in. It's not the answer, because they're not going to come in because other places are short as well. And you know, even if you gave out free visas, I doubt you're going to get the numbers you did before. Just the industry knows it's at fault here. It knows it's at fault, and it's just doing everything in its power to mediate the attention elsewhere, and you know, and it's just primarily out of greed and the bottom dollar at the end of the day. You know, the undercutting of some of the big hauliers out there especially has caused immense damage over the years, and this has been long time coming, for a very long time. This isn't something that's happened over the last 5 years. This is something that's been gradually getting worse each year almost, and it's just it's spectacular in some ways. It's just blowing up in their faces. I don't like it, but you know, sow what you reap. At the end of the day, it's pretty simple logic. So I'm going to go down to current and new drivers. How do you keep drivers in the industry? How do you attract drivers in? And there's a lot of issues here as well. I mean, as I say, with current drivers, they get disillusioned, and if how they've been treated and depend on their experience with the industry might drive them out of the industry, and has in a lot of cases. Also, we've got an ageing driving group as well, but at the same time as we've got an ageing driving group that we got more time in, there's still a lot of people who get in and just suddenly go, look, this is not for me. I'm not, by the way, claiming we should change how all the industry works. I'm not saying we should get rid of tramping and that. We just need to be honest and clear and offer adequate compensation to what we are asking from people. You know, in terms of how you pay and treat, you know. So, you know, if somebody's away from home for long periods of time, e.g. like a tramper, away 5 or 6 days a week plus, you pay them adequately, you compensate them, as if a bit like if they're working on the rigs or something. You know, equally you treat your day and night drivers well as well, and pay them adequately for their job. And, you know, there's other issues in terms of recruitment, and I'm going to touch on probably a subject that was divide drivers. And yet you have some in the middle. I think I'm kind of in the middle on this, kind of. It's up to you really to view where I stand, but hear me out fully on this one. And this affects new and current drivers, is CPC. Deserves a video of its own. What I think, have I done a video? I may have done, I've forgotten if I had. But I believe in further training, by the way. I want to highlight that fully. I'm not one of these saying get rid of any other training you have to do once you pass your test, you got it. You know it all then. No. You always learn something, and the idea of CPC is good. But it has a lot of issues. It has financial issues because there's no guarantee that the employers will pick up weight. Yes, more employers are paying for it, but equally the driver's having to pick up the cost as well. You know, 45, 50 quid a lesson, and you have to do 5 every 5 years. Might not sound like much, but still, and the fact that you got to do it in your limited free time. And that's probably my biggest issue, is the fact that you got to do it in your free time, and for how long you've got to do it in your free time. You know, it's not too bad if you plan it out, but still, it's, you know, if you're a tramper and you're working hard, putting a lot of hours in, then to spend pretty much a whole day sat in a classroom, you know. I mean, there's solutions. You could probably cut it down to maybe set up something like hour-long modules. So maybe not do 35 hours of training. Maybe have it as you do 12 hours or 5 hours of hour-long slots of training. That could be done remotely, which means you could potentially do it when you're out on the road for the sakes of trampers, and those who are at home, given more flexibility if they do it in the evening after work for an hour. And you're more likely to learn stuff within the first hour, was it 45 minutes first hour, than being sat there all day long, being, you know, some of the CPC lessons on some of the stuff, the bulk of it's taught to you within an hour, maybe a bit more depending on the lesson. And the rest of the day is really just fattening. You know, which, I'm not anti-CPC, I just think it needs a massive overhaul. And maybe a bit more consideration of what you're asking from the drivers in context. And, you know, how much, and bear in mind, the factors depend on your age. You may have to pay for medicals every 5 years as well, so that's like £100, wherever it is. Depending where you live, maybe more, maybe less. As well, on top of all that. And if you got ADR, which ADR does count towards CPC by the way, so that's another smart way of double whammying a qualification, is to do something like that as well. Obviously, subject to if you want to do that as well. But yeah, it's a bit mad really. You know, not many other even professional jobs out there, you have to do a lot of concurrent training. You know, I'm not saying they don't, but, you know, in terms of mandatory, always, no, unless if you're a gas engineer or something like that, where, yes, fair enough, you understand why. I'm not saying we shouldn't, either. And, you know, you have all the other issues that puts off new drivers. You know, like, they'll look at it and go, I've got to pay, what, 3 or 4 grand to get into the industry. And then I've got to do my CPC on top of that. Then you have the experience issue when you try and apply for your jobs, which I assume is not so bad now, but and also depend on your age as well. A lot of companies won't take you on if you're 25 or over, or under even. I think it's 25. Don't hold me to it. I'm not saying no one won't, but I know it's a bit tough if you're below 25. Also, you have the worries of being away from home. I said it goes back to what's the reward for doing this job? Because driving isn't. It's an easy job in aspect, but in actual reality, it is a tough job. Probably more mentally and socially, and your responsibility levels very high for a singular worker as well. I'm not saying we should cut that down. It's all factors though as being a truck driver, and you know, if you put somebody in a position where there's a lot of stress, a lot of, you know, responsibility and liability, and they have little social contact, they should be compensated for pay, holidays, you know, adequately. You know, the other thing I'm going to go back to the government on is with them changing all the rules. Well, not all the rules, but them pulling levers. You know, like with the test, making, I think it's the reverse bit of the test, cutting that out of it, which I think is a disaster waiting to happen. It's bad. It really is. It's, I think, 4 or 5 years' time, it's a bad thing. In the long term, it's really bad. That's what I'm trying to say. In the long term, it's really, really bad. And it's not a cure to get it fixed quicker either. It's just going to create more issues at the end of the day, and more hurt on people if it goes wrong, and damage caused and cost caused by damage of kit because people can't reverse correctly, for example. You know, even a pretty good driver mess up reversing, but you know, at least they know how to avoid not hitting something, and you know how to recorrect and sort themselves out with at least a basic amount of training and confidence to know you've passed the test on it as well. You know, and my conclusion to all this isn't easy. A lot of the fault lies at the industry's feet at the end of the day. A lot of the blame lies there. There is solutions, and there's no one solution, and there's no one fault in terms of issue that will fix everything with a golden stroke either. I mean, it's a mess. That's all I'll say. It's a mess. It's a mess just caused from greed at the end of the day, and companies taking advantage of drivers. And you know, it's a difficult one, because you know, some people might say, well, why haven't you drivers sort out? You know, if you don't know truck drivers, we are very isolated, unless if you're in a very close-knit team company, you know. But most cases, as drivers, you know, we're kind of a bit like loners to a certain degree, you know, in different ways and all that. It's very hard to actually explain it, certainly for me to explain it to somebody who isn't a truck driver. It will come across as very bizarre and but it's the nature of the work we do. You know, we spend a lot of time by ourselves, you know, a lot of time, you know, focusing on the road, controlling the vehicle, you know, loading, checking, etc., etc. You know, and you know, managing your day, managing your working hours, managing your driving time, managing, you know, have you done adequate rest, etc., etc., etc. You know, all stuff a lot of road users don't even need to worry about, you know, at the end of the day. And then, you know, you deal with silly issues, you know. What I'm trying to get at, it is a bizarre job. It's also can be a very stressful job, very lonely job, and, you know, I'm not trying to put people off here, but it is something to be aware of, and you've got to come in with the industry, in my opinion, with the white head on. You want to have to do it. You have. Yes, there's jobs you can treat more as a job within the industry, but equally, certainly on the tramping aspect, it's best to go into it treating it as a lifestyle. At the end of the day, it truly is a lifestyle. As a tramper, it is. It's not for everybody, but it is. If you enjoy it, you get on with it. it is a great thing at the end of the day. You know, it is an adventure. You know, I aspire personally to get into European work. Personally, that's where I'd love to go to. I really want to get into European work. Personally, I really enjoy what I do at the moment, by the way. But I want the adventure, and you know, drivers like myself just want the adventure. I'm very keen. I love my trucks. As you know, I love Scanias, I love Volvos, but equally all trucks are good. You know, and it's all about taking pride, and it gets really complicated. That's what I'm just trying to say. You know, as being a driver is a very complicated thing, and it's not as clear cut as it might seem from the outside. And this is why I think it's wrong why the media, government, and the industry just don't communicate, chat with us, ask us, you know, what the issues are. I'm not saying you can fix everything, by the way. You can certainly go a long way to doing so, if they did that. And I think I've covered most of the things on there. I mean, I have probably missed stuff out on this. Now, I do apologise if I have rattled on certain aspects a bit long-windedly. And a lot of this is just my opinion. I'm not saying I know it all. No. There is a lot more to some of these things as well than I've elaborated into. There is other things as well in the background. Now, I'm sure I'll think of something later today and go, why didn't I say that as well? But it's not the end of the world. As I say, those are probably the main things there. There's sub-issues, as I say, with the facilities. It's like, if you break it down, it's the parking charges are outrageous, and also the fact that they can also, the drivers might have to take the hit on that as well. That's another cost there you have to factor in, potentially, depending on your company that you work for there. And it's also the amount you pay is outrageous. Even if companies did pay that, it's a lot of money for what they offer. You know, and the cleanliness of toilets is a joke. Let alone the showers, even worse in most cases. You know, that's how I avoid them most of the time, unless I know there's a good one while I'm at. You know, pay, it's subjective pay. It's depending who you work for, you know, and what you expect for what you do. But fundamentally, pay has always been an issue in the industry. We've always been tended to be underpaid for what's asked of us, what they ask for us to do, and what we put into what we do. And yeah, and you do have sub issues like with agencies and full-time employees. That subject, that's been a factor as well. Not criticising agency, the employees, e.g. the drivers. Well, I think most drivers have been agency at some point. Not all, but I would say I've probably leading on to the majority at some time or another. I've probably have done some agency work. So, you know, I'm not saying agencies don't have their place, by the way, they do. But I do think some of these companies that have been undercutting have been heavily using agency drivers, and you all know what the issues are there, and deserves a video in its own right. I think I may have even done a video on that. Yeah, so I won't mind to hear what your thoughts are down below, and to be honest, I'm not too sure, besides from what I've mentioned, how to sort things out. There's no one easy answer. As I say, the industry could probably sort it out if it had the confidence to face up to the facts of what it's been doing and rectify those, and then maybe we can start heading in the right direction. You know, the government can do some things, but the government, what's been doing lately has been just doing all the wrong things. Just almost like every other wrong thing you can think of they've been doing, and if not dangerous. You know, and really the fault lies between those two at the end of the day, but primarily with the industry. And I want to highlight there is good companies in the industry as well. So I'm not saying that every company in the industry is fully at fault. No, there are some brilliant companies out there. You know, And it's also some of the representing bodies like the RHA and all that have just been completely off the beat. You know, they don't represent the drivers, certainly not in my opinion, they don't. You know, it's a mess. It's crazy. It's interesting times though, looking at some of the rates of pay going up as well. So there is positive stuff going on. And a lot of it is we're going to have to wait and see what happens. You know, I just think they're pulling a lot of the wrong levers at the moment. The only one they've got so right is upping the pay in one end, and I hope that might drive the pay up in the rest of the industry eventually. We'll have to see. I'm not banking on it, but we'll have to see. So with all that said, thank you very much for listening to it. You know, and please comment down below if I've missed something or got something wrong. What, you know, what's your thoughts on it? What could be your solutions? You know, try and be positive, try and be constructive out of this video, and try and think, what could we do? You know, there's probably solutions to a lot of these, but how to get there is, you know, there's multiple ways potentially. So I want to say yet again a massive thank you to all my recent subscribers and my current subscribers who've been with me for a long time. You all are seriously very much appreciated, and I do apologise, as I always do in every video lately, that I've been away, and I can't guarantee I'll be putting a lot of regular content up after this video, so just bear with me. I'll try the best, but hopefully we'll get there. We'll get back to being a bit more regular and reliable. And I don't really have any news to pass on in this video. Just I'm still at Hewix, still enjoying what I'm doing. You know, I am looking about, let's say, at European work at the moment, umming and ahhing, but only for the right employer at the end of the day. And I don't mean that in a nasty way or in a high up sort of way. It's just when you're with a good employer already, as I am, I don't want to go, for the sakes of getting into European work, to make too many sacrifices in that way. I don't mind putting the hours in to do European work. I don't mind being away for a few weeks to do it, for example. But I want to get base one right first. This is something I've learnt through work and working for a few companies. And as I've been with Hewix for 3 years now, you know, it's the longest transport company I've been with. And by the way, I'm not disappearing from Hewix this minute. I'm just sort of saying I'm looking about at European work as well. That's really the only news that I'm doing at the moment. And besides than that, it's all normal, which is good to a certain extent. You know, and by the way, that isn't meaning I'm not, that there's something wrong with Hewix or anything like that. No, they're a good company, they've looked after me, and I'm still happy to be with them at the end of the day, and I would recommend them, certainly if you have to tanker work. And with all that said, I want to say yet again a massive thank you to everybody who watched my videos. You're all very much appreciated. You help drive the channel. Also, with the comments thing, just if you've got any ideas, any ways to improve the videos, anything that you want me to talk about, my view on, or you know, etc, etc, feel free to comment down below. Please check out my Facebook and Instagram. I do try to post up when I can. I'm not as reliable as I normally am, but I am trying to get some good pictures of the truck or something. I'll throw it up. And with all that said, thank you very much for listening to my 1 pence per piece worth of view on the driver shortage. And I'll see you in the next one. Over and out.